Hello and welcome to the Community Emergency Fund supporting information from Team BED&LUTON. I'm Claire Fitzboyden and my colleague Graham Simpson. We're here just to provide additional information for this application, which is currently open from Sport England. We've done 4 workshops in the last few weeks, and we thought it'd just be really helpful to actually record it, so perhaps those who've actually attended the workshops might be able to listen to it again, or if you were unfortunately you weren't able to make it, then you can listen in and it might give you some top tips in order for you to apply for this pot of funding. The fund has now been open for 2 or 3 weeks and there is about £20 million available from Sport England. It is all about emergency funding, so it's really aimed at organisations who need to try and keep the lights on during this pandemic. We have been talking to Sport England about the rate of applications coming in, and it is really competitive. I think as of yesterday, there was something like, look at my notes, 6,000 applications had already come in. So hopefully this information will really help your application stand out in order for you to be successful. But do not hesitate to give us a call if you need some further information about applying, or if you've heard back from Sport England and you've been unsuccessful. We'll do all we can to help you so that you can find the funding to help you through this period. So there is the link there on this first page for the actual application, and there's some FAQs on that page as well. So do have a look, as there could be some additional information that will help you through that. So we'll go straight onto the finance and the government schemes. So over to you, Graham.
Right, thank you, Claire. Right, so finance covers questions 23 to 28 within the application. I'll quickly run through each of the questions and just provide some very simple advice and guidance on each section for you. So the first question 23, the total amount that you're requesting. Please be mindful that the maximum amount available through Sport England is £10,000, the minimum 300. So you can't request anything more than £10,000, even if the costs during the period between the 1st of March and 31st of July that you need covered are more than that. Okay. Question 24, explain how you'll spend the funding and how the value was calculated. Well, Sport England identified some eligible costs, and we've also had a think about that. So the type of costs that will be eligible for funding through this fund, up to the maximum figure of £10,000, are as follows. So rent, utilities, casual staffing costs that can't be covered by the government scheme, insurance premiums, equipment leases, finance agreements, essential maintenance costs on pitches, buildings and ancillary equipment. There may be others that we've not thought of, and I think if you work on the rule that it's an essential cost that needs to be paid and it can't be deferred and it can't be covered through the government support schemes that are available, then include it within your calculations. When you're looking at your calculations, do also think about the funding and the income that you can generate through your club during this time. So whilst activity may not be going on, it may well be that you've got members out there who are able to contribute in some way towards the costs that you need to cover during this period. Some will have funds to do this and be willing to do this. Others, we appreciate, will be having a really difficult time and just won't be able to do so. But please do go out there and ask that question of your membership and see what you can generate through your own funds from this source. Please also take off any cash reserves that you're able to use as well to fund or part fund your requirement during this period. We'll cover the reserves a little bit more in question 27 and 28, which I'll come on to shortly. And the final thing, just to stress again, I've already touched on this, but the grant will fund losses for the period from the 1st of March through to the 31st of July. So none of us know when things are going to reopen again, and we're going to be able to start doing activity. But what Sport England said is they will fund your estimated projected losses through to the 31st of July. So please include them. We've also provided a separate cash flow forecast template, and if any of you would like to access this, please do drop us a line and we'll get that out to you. Questions 26 and 27 relate to the income that your 25 and 26, relate to the income that you estimate your organisation has already lost and will continue to lose between now and from the 1st of March through to the 31st of July. So this won't be the basis for the amount that you request, but what it will do is it will give Sport England a really good idea of the impact that the current situation is having on your club. It may well be that you're a club that does a number of activities at this time of year. You're a football club that's got an end of season awards night coming up. You're a cricket club that would normally be collecting its memberships now and its match fees, and just nothing is happening or likely to be happening. So just calculate what these losses are likely to be in income. Provide a figure in question 25, and then provide a breakdown. We suggest you do that on a monthly basis and by income source within question 26. That will really help Sport England, I think, to understand just what level of impact this is having on your club. And there's a question further down, which Claire will cover in a little while, which talks about the implications for your club if funding isn't secured. And I think it will help to sort of demonstrate and paint a picture for Sport England when you come to actually answer that question. Question 27 and question 28 are around reserves and savings. Now, Sport England rightly acknowledged that it's perfectly fine and indeed expected and good practice for clubs to have reserves available to them. Now, reserves come in different forms. You can have a designated reserve that you perhaps set aside cash to fund a project, or a sinking fund to replace items of equipment or to maintain your facilities. So please do specify what these designated reserves are, the amount, and what they're designated for. You also need to specify if you've got any unrestricted reserves, so cash reserves that can be used for a rainy day. We're now in a rainy day, or a rainy few weeks, or a rainy few months. So Sport England will expect that if you've got some unrestricted cash reserves, that you actually use these during this period to cover in part the costs that we talked about earlier within question 23 and 24. So please, do articulate the funds that you have available to help cover your essential costs between now and the 31st of July, and include those within the calculation within question 24. Okay. In terms of supporting evidence, we do recommend that you submit your last year's accounts, and we do also recommend that you perhaps go back over the last 2 or 3 years to just have a look at the costs that you've incurred and also the income that you've generated during this period, as this will help you to justify the figures that you've come up with within this section. Okay. The next section is government schemes, and you'll see that we provided a link for you. I'm not going to go through this in great detail, but I'm just going to highlight sort of 3 areas really that you should consider. And the reason why this is important is because Sport England have made it very, very clear that they will not fund anything through this fund that can be funded through the government scheme. So the first scheme we'll highlight for you is the job retention scheme. So if you have staff on a PAYE scheme that's registered and active as at the 19th of March, then you can furlough staff within that scheme up to a value of £2,500 in any 1 month. And that's to cover not just gross salaries, but also employers' national insurance and pension contributions. You will be expected then to claim just 80% of those total costs up to a figure of £2,500. And that scheme is available through to the end of June, and you can actually backdate claims to the 1st of March. The portal on that actually opened at the beginning of this week on the 20th of April, so you can submit your furlough claims, and what the government is saying is that they will actually turn around those claims and pay money into your bank account within 6 working days. In terms of staff that are self-employed, obviously you can't follow them, they're not on a PAYE scheme. There are rules around what they can actually claim. They would need to submit claims themselves. For those self-employed, they need to have submitted a tax return in 2018-19, be trading in 2019-20, and intend to continue to trade in the tax year 2021. They will also need to demonstrate clearly that they've lost income due to COVID-19, and their trading profits must be less than £50,000, and more than half of their income from self-employment. So they'll need to do this themselves. If they need any help and support, I just want to talk that through. We're happy to help them with that, but we're not experts. But the government guidelines on that is quite helpful and quite straightforward. In terms of casuals, if you've got casuals who are on the PAYE scheme, then you should consider furloughing them, and your claim really needs to be justified. So what I would look to do is take an average of the income that you've paid them, perhaps over a 6-month period. For any clubs out there who are UK VAT registered and have a VAT payment due between the 20th of March and 30th of June 2020, you have the option to defer the payment until a later date or pay the VAT as normal. You don't need to tell MHMRC what you're doing, but you can actually defer that payment until the 31st of March 2021. So it's a cash flow benefit to you at this time. The government is also introducing a business rate holiday relief for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses. So that will cover sports clubs for the whole of the 2021 tax year. You don't need to do anything for this, it will happen automatically. And there are also business grants attached to this eligibility, and the amounts available range from £10,000 to £25,000 depending upon the level of business rates that you pay in a year, up to a maximum of £51,000. They're sort of 3 or 4 key areas that we think sports clubs and community groups will potentially benefit with through the government schemes. So please do apply to these schemes, as you won't be able to get these covered through this fund. Claire, I think if you can take us through the next section.
Thank you. So the following questions, question 29 to 33 on the application form, are really around what we're describing as your reach and role. As mentioned, it is a competitive process. And when we spoke to Sport England yesterday, they did say that they were approving about 2/3 of the applications coming through. So that gives you a little bit of context in terms of how likely it may be that you can actually get funding for this. But this area, so 29 starts off about describing the work your organisation does and who in the community benefits from it. And this is it's a really key question for you to bring to life the type of individuals that actually benefit from the work that you do at your facility or your community sport and physical activity group. So they are going to have to prioritise, and they're really keen to see applications that meet certain target groups. So are you in an area of deprivation? If you are, or if your participants come from an area of deprivation, it'd be really important to include that in this question. Now, if you have any trouble finding or doing any research on that, again, do come back to myself or Graham and we can help you with that. but please bring that bit to life, because they've been quite disappointed actually from the applications coming through. Not as many as they would have liked are coming from areas of deprivation. So if that is for you and is relevant for you as an organisation, here's your opportunity to pull that information out. The target groups that they're keen to hear about are from women and girls, disabled groups, low socioeconomic groups, BAME, LGBT, older people, or those with long-term health conditions. So really think about the spread and the reach of the work that you're doing and whether any of those groups fall within your activities. It might not be around all of your membership, but I'm sure that there will be some of those target groups that you do work with. So it might be useful here to break down your membership and highlight how many are from each individual groups. The next question is describing the activities your organisation has delivered over the last 12 months. So Sport England really wants to see that you have been active over this 12-month period. And it's not a group that is not really doing very much. So how active are you as an organisation, and describe the activities that you do. So bring that to life so that they can see that you're a proactive organisation that works with a variety of groups in the community. So that's really what you want to bring out in question 30. Question 31 is about how you're staying in touch with your participants during this period. Now, we've seen some really innovative ways that people have been doing this. Some organisations are doing little video clips of their members doing activities. There might be WhatsApp groups out there that you're in touch with. Now, the relevance to Sport England on this is they don't want to invest into an organisation who's going to see their membership like significantly drop off. Are you trying to really keep your membership talking to each other and keep engaged so that when things change and hopefully we come out of this period, you've got an alive group who are really keen to work with you and get back into your organisation, your club or your community group. So emphasise that and what you're doing in that question. 32 is about the consequences if your organisation is not successful in securing this funding. So we've talked really about the financial implications, but what are the implications in the community really if you're not active? So it kind of links to 29 about how the community benefits. Now, what would be the consequence if you weren't able to get funding? So really think about that social and community impact if you weren't to be successful, and how devastating that would be, so that they can really get a sense of where you are and what is required in your community group. So I think they said yesterday there's a 900 word count to each question. So, you've got a really good opportunity here to bring to life and get the person that's going to be assessing this to really understand the work that you're doing. Number 33, any support or guidance that would help you at this time. So you might not have anything to add to this question, but they're just quite keen to sort of keep hearing from community groups, sports and physical activity groups, what is it that is required. There will be other funding pots coming out from Sport England about how you are able to react post lockdown. So again, you might be able to touch on that here about what you feel you would need, because that's useful for them to shape how they offer their grants in the future. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of information about what to emphasise, what key points are going to be needed. It's quite a light touch application form and quite straightforward, but it's your one opportunity really. you need to be able to get across in a concise way about what is really needed, and what would be the implications if you weren't to get funding. And they're really keen to see, I mean, I think their average award is about £6,000, but you know, you may need 500, and so don't hesitate, even if it's a small amount of money, to actually get that application in, because it really could help you going forward in the future. So that's it, Graham. I haven't got anything more to add. Is there anything that I've missed or that you think we should emphasise?
No, Claire. I mean, the only additional thing I would say, I think, is if you want us to review your applications, please do email them in to us, and we'll happily review them for you and turn that round within 24 hours. The application is an online application, but it needs to be done in one hit, so in one visit. So what we suggest you do is you download the application into a Word document and draft it all out. Perhaps then get it reviewed, and then when you're happy to submit it, go online and then copy and paste the answers in. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for you if you don't plan well beforehand. Good luck.
Yeah, excellent.
We're here to help you should you need us.
Absolutely.